I'm delighted to introduce to you Lucas Meyer. He's an old student and friend of mine. Thank you, Lucas, for joining us today and for sharing what you have to share with our audience.
Thank you, Lama. I'm happy to be here.
I am thrilled to be the first person who officially get to introduce you to our audience. Obviously, you said you haven't given other interviews, so no need to be nervous today.
All right. I feel good. I feel good about this.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about how you got involved in all this strange and unusual field of Qigong and Qi Dao in particular. What got you into it?
It's a great question, Lama. I met you in 2009. Met you at your house, as I remember, and you proceeded to give me a demonstration of certain things that you could do physically, um, not just by your person, but interacting with me physically, um, showing me things that I later learned. But at the time, I just thought, wow, that's very magical, and I can't really explain what you're doing. Um, a little bit of prologue to that. I've had I've suffered with mental health issues for most of my life, anxiety and depression, certainly throughout most of my 20s. Um, and I had explored meditation and I had studied a little bit of Buddhism, and I think that appealed to me more so than Western notions of religion or spirituality. When I met you, I had just turned 30, and for better or worse, I think a lot of people start thinking of their lives a little differently. Okay, what's the next decade of my life going to do? What am I doing with my life? So I didn't really know what I was doing with my life. I was unemployed. I had become a lawyer 3 years ago, but uh, I didn't have any focus in that profession. I was a bit lost, and when I met you, I just thought what you demonstrated to me was quite impressive, and I thought, okay, maybe this guy knows something I don't, and I need to learn a lot quickly to improve my life. So that's when I signed up for the Academy of Qi Dao.
Very cool. And what would you say were the immediate effects of your experience with Qi Dao?
Well, a big one was, as I mentioned earlier, I had been suffering from anxiety and depression, and um, I had been medicating myself for that, prescription medications, but I don't know if they ever really worked. Um, they may have numbed me a bit. They certainly had some other side effects that weren't so great. But I was just thinking, well, this is it. I'm a depressed person. I'm going to be depressed forever. So I guess this is my lot in life, and I just keep taking these things. And it was through studying with you that I realized that that's a choice. Um, I don't have to necessarily do that. And so I decided to go cold turkey, as it were, on my antidepressants. I think I want to say in April of 2010, which is about 6 months after I started, 6, 7 months after I started studying with you. And I haven't taken any antidepressants since then. And I feel great about that. I've certainly had issues since then, but I've decided that I'd like to use other modalities to improve my health. That's been a huge difference. Certainly, not paying for antidepressants helps too. Um,
Right on.
but that's just one effect. The biggest one of the biggest things that I think you teach, and that has certainly carried with me to this day, is learning a harmonious culture of movement. And it just amazed me how much of our movement is not very useful or productive to our happiness, our physical or mental well-being, and how they're attached to holding patterns, which we don't even recognize that we have. I mean, I realized for most of my life I've been walking with my head down when I met you, and a holding down pattern, and and maybe I could have made the connection between the physical and the mental, but you really solidified that for me, and how just changing your posture just a little bit can really change your experience. And the realization that there's no distinction between the mental and physical parts of yourself. So that was huge. I decide when to hold myself in certain patterns according to how it may help me. I certainly move better. And when I got to it after your first course at the time, your beginner level, learning the practice of empowerment was also a very important part in my development. So I thoroughly felt a lot better very quickly once I started studying with you.
Right on. Yeah, and then we also had an opportunity to actually live under one roof. So that kind of created even more interesting dynamics. But that also put you kind of on the course of apprenticing and meeting all kinds of members of our community. Now, I suspect, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I wonder if you also managed to overcome significant shyness that I know you used to experience. And you don't seem to be such a shy person to me at this moment.
That's very nice to hear, Lama. Thank you. I would still describe myself as a shy person, but I think I'm definitely better on that front than I was when I met you. And there are a number of reasons for that, but and I want to make a distinction between shyness and introversion too, just to stand up for my fellow introverts. Introversion, extroversion, that's just a preference for how we operate, how we deal with external stimuli. I would prefer to read books all day. That's just and live more in my mind. But but that doesn't mean I have to be shy. It doesn't mean I have to be afraid of talking to people, of sharing what I know, of acting in ways that that benefit me and others as well. So I'd like to point to something within Qi Dao, the idea of self-improvement and acting according to your dreams. So if I have a desired state I want to achieve, imagine I'm already there, imagining I'm already living that life. And so how would I act differently? And to be fair, I've heard this idea presented by other people since I met you as well. But I think you're the first person to introduce me to this idea, the idea of having some sort of dream character. And it's helped me out. Fake it a bit, pretend I'm someone I'm not, and eventually I may even end up getting there.
Well, that's not exactly how I would look at it. Now, rather than pretending who you're not, you actually are stepping into the avatar of the person who you need to be in order to live your dream. It's not like you are faking it before you're making it. It's more like developing clarity of how you need to be so that you would be able to manifest and live your dreams. And actually embodying that person, identifying with that new way of being that may take a little bit of time and certain transition period, but it creates the clarity of purpose. Why is it that you are doing it? Not because you want to satisfy somebody else's expectations, not because you want to look cool or more successful. In other words, you're not trying to pretend to be somebody who you're not. You're actually connecting with that person within yourself, who you really are, who just has not been able to express yourself fully because of inhibitions, fears, and various other self-defeating unconscious strategies that we all have. And that basically is the trick to living your life more authentically and more fully rather than pretending to be somebody who you aren't. Because that would require a lot of tension. That's the recipe for creating and developing a holding pattern, which is exactly the opposite of what we want. We don't want to create a new holding pattern. We want to let go of the unnecessary patterns and actually discover what it's like to be free of tension and free of pretense.
Thank you, Lama. you said it much better than I could, and that is what I am trying to say to you. Because, for example, we use what we just spoke about. Uh, I wanted to perform before people in a musical context since I was probably 13 or 14. I got a guitar and I started reading up on musicians of the past. I thought that would be so cool. And 30 years later, almost, um, that's still my dream. Um, and so now I'm just trying to tap into it more and think, hey, you know what? That's something I'd like. And and I've done stuff since then. I've sung before people. I've played drums in front of people, whatever level that ever as a being. But it's something I'm more comfortable identifying with than I did when I was younger. And that's just one example. But thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, and as a musician, you not only sing in front of people, but you also play musical instruments. I mean, for example, your drumming is superb, in my humble opinion. I've heard you a number of times, and that's like, wow, Lucas really kicks ass on drums. Now, maybe you also play some other musical instruments now, or tell me a little bit more about your musical aspirations. Maybe our listeners would like to hear that as well.
Oh, sure. I when people ask me what do I like uh, most in the world, I say music, and sometimes I think maybe that sounds like to some people that might be like, well, sure, everyone likes music, right? Like most people like something they like, or I like food. What? And someone might say, well, yeah, of course I like food. Everyone likes food. You have to eat. But I would humbly submit that it's a little different in my case, which is that um, I read about it all the time. I'm constantly tapping drum patterns or singing. I almost always have a song going through my head at any given moment, for better or worse. Um, uh, I could talk about music with people all day. I like reading product reviews of guitars and amps and all sorts of stuff, even for items that are way above my budget. And I like performing. I think it's fundamental to who I am, and I got that from my mother. And so, in terms of inspirations of particular what types of music, I mean, I I grew up listening to classic rock, but I like all kinds of music. The great jazz musician Duke Ellington said that there are two types of music. There's good music and the other kind. So um, I can easily just as listen to meditative music as I can listen to heavy metal and everything in between. I can find things to appreciate about all the different varieties of music that people perform. I just, it's that much a part of me. I love it very much.
That's awesome. And it's also an interesting exploration of energy resonance, which is obviously one of the areas of expertise that we dive into as we progress further into Qi Dao studies, recognizing how resonance applies not only to audio frequencies, but energetic resonance means that we connect energetically with a particular piece of music or a song or any other expression or thought form or item or course of action, basically develop energy awareness, which guides us in making decisions in the most intelligent way, as far as I'm concerned. Have you been applying any of these principles of energy awareness into your daily life or professional life in the last few years since you graduated from our academy?
Going along with my love of music, one of the things that you teach, one of the meditations, the most important meditations you teach, and it's about. I liked your metaphor about being like a dance, and that appeals to me greatly. Music and dance are greatly intertwined. I think I'm a much better dancer than I was before I started studying with you. And because, and I don't, when I'm dancing, I don't think, okay, I've got to move my arm up like this or move my head like this just because this is what I think is going to look cool and this is what will wow people. That's not how it works at all. I listen to what's going on. I listen to what my body is telling me, and being in the flow of things, I just let my body do what it wants to do, and it feels so much better than before when I would, if someone asked me to dance, I would have said first no, and two, if I had to, uh, I would just start trying to do things that I think would work, and that's so much work. So the idea is just for me is to trust what um, the energy around me, what I'm resonating with. That's a physical example. In terms of personal life or my professional life, it helps me to make decisions. I can write a list of pros, a list of cons. That's what most people would tell you what to do. But in the end, how do you even know how to weigh those things against each other? And let's say there was something that on paper, right, on paper looks really good, but if you don't, if you're not feeling it, at least for me, I don't do it. I'm going to make the best decision that's right for me. I trust myself a lot more since before I met you. That that's that's my answer as with respect to energy resonance. Um, I can certainly talk about other ways in which Qi Dao has helped me in my personal and professional life too.
Please do. That's very cool.
I work as an administrator administering class action settlements. So you might get something in the mail saying you might be entitled to X number of dollars if you fit into this situation. I've used this in my own life. I could spend all day talking about, and I used to do this before and after I met you, and I had absolutely no money. I had to ask my dad for money to pay my rent. I thought things were kind of hopeless, and now I've been working at the same job for 5 years, and I'm providing for myself and my partner, and um, I still have challenges, but I also have a sense that don't view them as problems, view them as opportunities for growth, learning opportunities, which is, I think, one of the best things I took away from your teachings.
Yeah, that's basically the principle of resilience. You're resilient and resourceful in the face of adversity, and instead of looking at it as a big problem, you perceive it very quickly as an opportunity to learn and grow from it. Well, that's basically an enlightened way to live. So kudos for embodying this principle. Now, let me ask you this. Has Qi Dao studies inspired you to seek any other sources of wisdom?
Yes, I think there are many wise people in the world. You're one of them, but I'm sure you would acknowledge that there are other wise people. You talk to them all the time, and you can learn things. We all can learn things.
Of
No
course.
one has a monopoly on the truth. Have tried to seek out other sources of wisdom. Um, I think this was pretty much in the last year or so. Um, I decided um, that it was a good time for me to really make some changes in my life, kind of going on autopilot and realizing that I can do better. So um, I was fed an ad on YouTube by a gentleman named Tim Hahn. He has a company called Success Insider. He's based in England, and he has a he has an organization and a collection of materials. And I purchased his materials, and I thought he had some good things to say about in covering, my limiting beliefs about what can be better. So I studied his program, and he offered an invitation to people to. He has a yearly retreat in Thailand for people to try to apply to. It's only 30 people a year. I didn't think I was. He said, go and try out for it. And I thought, I'm not going to there's no way I'm going to get accepted because I haven't been doing Facebook postings and I don't feel comfortable doing all this stuff anyway. Long story short, I applied anyway and I was accepted. So um, I will be going to Thailand next year, which
Cool.
is incredibly exciting to me. I've never been anywhere besides Mexico or Canada, so looking forward to that. I've
Will
also,
you be able to travel easier next year?
yes, I was initially scheduled to go there next month, but they wisely decided to postpone this given the uncertainty of the situation, and I think it'll be better for all involved if things are better and we can relate more normally. Um, Studied some materials from a woman named Natalie Ledwell, who has a company called Mind Movies, and she she has a lot of material and she's been doing it for a long time. But she talks about these Mind Movies are literal; they're little movies you can play yourself. But she has all sorts of materials too, and I noticed the convergence of thinking um, between these various thinkers, which is good, right? I like to see some things. The idea of science builds upon each other. Science is not necessarily what we think of as being just beakers in a lab, and science, its root just means knowledge. And I think um, it's good to see um, a lot of the similarities, I think, between what you teach and what other people teach, presented in slightly different forms according to their own experiences. But um, it helps me think that I'm not crazy, that I'm going down the right path, finding things that resonate with me. And I think everyone should seek out. I think everyone needs some sort of mentor or multiple mentors, but I think it's important to just keep learning from people because um, what works for you may not work for someone else. And that's one of the things I loved about Qi Dao is that how anti-dogmatic it is. The idea, the lesson behind all of this is to test everything. Is don't accept anything on faith, because goodness knows a lot of people promote a lot of ideas that they very well may believe is right, but they're only right to you if you can experience them yourself.
Brilliant. Well, that's what we call authenticity, right? The ability to not succumb to groupthink and not just follow a cult or some social media trend, but actually think for yourself and operate on the basis of evidence rather than assumptions. What do you think our Qi Dao teachings would be able to contribute to the new normal in this rapidly changing world?
That is a fantastic question and one that I think about a lot. Um, I want to start off by saying that it's been a challenging year for all of us, whether our lives have improved or not. I think just the idea of this is something that the world hasn't experienced in 100 years. So hardly anyone in existence knows how to deal with it. Very real in that sense, but I would be lying if I didn't say that I think my life has gotten better since this happened, and for a number of reasons. First of all, I think, like I alluded to earlier, I'm an introvert. I prefer to stay at home and read books. I was forced to work remotely, and that has been such a great boon to me in terms of I don't have to commute anymore. I have a very long commute. I don't particularly like driving. I also don't like being in a big office building with bad lighting and no windows, having to deal with people's conversations and phone calls and people tapping you on the shoulder and saying, hey, can I get your attention with this? I don't have to deal with any of that. I can be at home, work on things in an environment that I enjoy. It's been wonderful. So that's one of the ways it's been so much better for me. But I think also in the larger context for all of us, it really, I think, was a necessary event in human development because I don't think that what we were doing before was sustainable, or at least it was outdated. We don't have to do any of that. At least at my company, they found that productivity went up, not down. I think many other companies are experiencing this as well, and I think that sticks. I think my company talks about, oh, what's the return to work situation going to be like? It may be the case that they want me to come in um, at least sometime. I don't think so, but even if it does, it certainly won't be working 40 hours a week at a building every day. That's gone. No one's going to accept that anymore as normal. And I think
That's
that's
a
great.
healthy transition. And
Yeah.
less commute, therefore less pollution, less traffic on the roads. People don't have to waste so much time sitting in cars getting from point A to point B, and lots of other reasons that this may actually be an improvement in terms of quality of life for millions of people.
Yes, fewer chances of people dying. I mean, auto crashes kill tens of thousands of people every year. I've been in serious car crashes. I can tell people listening to this, it's not fun. I don't recommend it. But it's more than that, right? Because I think people, perhaps of an older generation, might think, well, if people are in the office, I can't watch them. I can't go over them, look over their shoulder and see what they're doing. So that's that. Well, why? I mean, I think those people are focusing perhaps on their own control issues, but also over process. When in the end, it doesn't matter how you got to a result. It just matters that you have a result. So if people are turning out the same work product or better, why would we even consider that? It's also changing expectations about perhaps trivial things like dress. Look at what you're wearing. Look at what I'm wearing. Even in a business context, I don't think most people are dressing like this. My CEO gets on camera to give us updates. He's not wearing a suit. He's the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company and not wearing a suit. Every day I wear comfortable clothing. Lets me focus on what I think is really important. People realize that they don't need to have a brick and mortar office at all to do what they want to do. The world is so much more interconnected and delivered online. We can work anywhere. And also, it also means that if you want to be an entrepreneur, as I imagine many of your listeners are, or are thinking of becoming, you don't need an office. It may be useful for what you end up doing, but really, you can just conduct your business from the comfort of your home and a laptop. For example, my sister, she moved to Costa Rica a couple of years ago with her husband and her two children. We didn't know what they were doing. I'm not sure she knew what she was doing either, but I recently learned that she has started a coaching service. She was a naturopathic doctor, and that didn't work out for her for various reasons. But now she's in Costa Rica, and she has decided to start a coaching service using the knowledge that she has learned from moving to Costa Rica. A lot of people realize, also because of the pandemic, life is more precious than I thought. I need to really start acting on my dreams now. So what if I want to move somewhere else? I can do stuff from the comfort of my home. Why does my home have to be in the United States at all? Why don't I move to someplace that might resonate more with me, like Costa Rica, for example, or wherever that place may be? And so now she and her husband are offering coaching sessions to people who are considering moving their family abroad, because I imagine that's a huge step for many families, and she's trying to make it a little easier for people so that they can realize their dreams.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Well, and that is an example of basically doing what I've been talking about and teaching for last 17 years or so, because coaching has been my bread and butter. I've been coaching people from all over the world. We have an international community of people who've been receiving my coaching or learning how to become coaches themselves. And interestingly enough, you're absolutely right. You can be literally anywhere in the world as long as you have a decent internet connection, which is not always guaranteed. And, speaking the same language helps too. But I totally agree that you can do this work from virtually anywhere. And that's exactly why it's the fastest growing profession, especially during this pandemic. Why? Because people realize they can become coaches and they can do this work, working for themselves, be their own boss, and have a great lifestyle, helping other people, perhaps from all over the world, to live their dreams or live their lives better, or improve the specific area of their lives that they specialize in. So that's fantastic example of developing entrepreneurship thanks to the pandemic. Now, of course, it also threw a few wrenches in the work, so to speak. So we don't want to be particularly glib about the fact that the pandemic happened, but we can adapt to it, and we can also see how we can put our resilience to good use and eventually thrive rather than struggle as a result of this pandemic. Where do you think the new normal will be, or what is going to look like in terms of how people will travel, how people will communicate, how people will educate, receive services that perhaps we were so used to receiving face to face? What is it going to be like?
We've experienced certain things that people really resonate with, I think, like people working remotely. I think a lot of people resonate with that. Some other things I think haven't worked out so well, and I don't have personal experience, but I certainly know people who have children and have just heard stories through the media about how schooling has been a little difficult or challenging for people to deal with. You can offer certain coaching services online, but certain things will never replicate. We can't really push hands over the internet. That's something that will
be pretty trippy.
yeah.
Virtual reality will evolve to that level sometime soon. Who knows? That would be
right. That could be the case. Well, for example, the experience of going to a movie theater, I don't know if that's ever going to be the same. Not in the sense that they won't have movie theaters showing movies. I think they will, but I think the pandemic has already accelerated a trend towards people getting their entertainment at home. They don't have to deal with the lines and the parking and the expensive boxes of popcorn and $6 drinks and all that stuff. They don't have to deal with that anymore. They can just do it from home. Now, we can argue as to whether the quality of stuff at home is the same or not, whether we're losing something. I think we are losing something, but I wouldn't be an investor in movie houses right now, for example.
Even IMAX type of films probably will get replaced, if not with big screen TVs, then with the virtual reality headsets, where you can literally look around and be in the movie. And I think that's going to be the big next step in the entertainment industry.
We just keep adapting and learning and doing what works for us. And I mean, for me, biggest lessons of this is just an appreciation of being open to experience, which is something I feel like I always had. I always love learning, but yeah, it's just not to be afraid and to whatever waves the universe throws at us, just go with it. Go with the flow.
Well, that's my line too. Right on, Lucas. Well, thank you so much for sharing your perspectives and your experiences. To wrap up, let me ask you this, Lucas. how would our viewers be able to connect with you if they wanted to learn more about you or from you?
Thanks for asking, Lama. If your viewers would like to connect with me to learn more about my experiences with Qi Dao or anything else I've spoken about today, they can reach me at my email address, which is lucasquinmeyer@gmail.com. That's my full name.
Once again, you just enjoyed the interview with Lucas Meyer. Thanks.
Thanks, Lama.